Every spring, millions of gardeners pay a hidden tax. They haul heavy bags of soil, buy synthetic fertilizers, and dump gallons of water into beds that never seem to have enough. It is a subscription model for survival, one that bleeds your time and your bank account. But while we struggle with the rising costs of our hobby, a forgotten design is quietly thriving in the harshest environments on Earth. It uses 66% less water, it requires zero chemical inputs, and it transforms your kitchen waste into a literal engine of survival. To understand how, we have to look back to the mid-1990s. Southern Africa was facing a crisis that went far beyond a simple lack of rain. In Lesotho and Zimbabwe, the soil hadn't just gone dry, it had died. Families were caught in a brutal pincer movement, a devastating HIV epidemic that sapped their physical strength and a drought that turned their land to dust. They didn't have the energy to dig deep trenches. They didn't have the money for imported fertilizers. They needed a miracle that worked with what they had left. Into this silence stepped local farmers and relief teams. They didn't bring high-tech pumps or patented seeds. They brought a circle of stones. This is the Keyhole Garden. It isn't just a raised bed, it is a living machine. Imagine a circular structure, waist-high, built from local stone or scrap wood. From above, it looks like a keyhole with a small notch cut into one side. This notch allows you to walk right into the heart of the garden. At the very center sits a porous wire basket. This is the protocol. First, you build the outer wall, filling the base with layers of dry sticks, bones, and ash to create a reservoir of minerals. Second, you place the central basket, which acts as the garden's stomach. Every day, you drop your greywater and kitchen scraps into this core. As the organic matter breaks down, nutrients don't just sit there. They migrate outward, fueled by the water you pour through the center, saturating the soil from the inside out. In the heat of Lesotho, this design meant the difference between hunger and hope. Because the bed is raised, it saves the gardener's back. Because it is circular, it maximizes the growing area. And because the core is constantly composting, the soil never becomes exhausted. It is a closed-loop system that rejects the need for external commerce. We have been taught that gardening is something you buy from a store. We've been led to believe that productivity requires a chemical intervention, but the Keyhole Garden proves otherwise. It is a testament to ancestral wisdom, a reminder that when the systems of the world fail, the earth is still ready to provide, provided we are humble enough to listen to its rhythm. Break the cycle. Build the engine. Reclaim your harvest. Most people don't realize they've signed up for a subscription model just to grow a tomato. You buy the seeds, you buy the fertilizer, you buy the soil, and you bleed time and money into a system designed to fail the moment you stop paying. It's a fragile cycle. But in the mountain kingdom of Lesotho, survival couldn't afford a subscription. In the late 90s, this wasn't an academic debate. It was a crisis. HIV/AIDS and drought were hollowing out communities, leaving the elderly and the orphaned to fend for themselves. They didn't need a lecture on industrial agriculture. They needed an engine of survival. That engine took the form of a circle. Imagine a waist-high fortress of stone, built so those with aching backs or fading strength could reach the soil without kneeling. At its heart sits a wire basket, a digestive system for the garden. This is the Keyhole Garden. It doesn't just sit there, it breathes. You feed the center with what others call trash. Kitchen scraps, cardboard ash, and the water you pour through that core carries a life-sustaining tea of nutrients directly to the roots. It's a closed loop. No fertilizer, no expensive inputs, just a daily act of feeding the soil. The data is staggering. While most aid projects vanish the moment the trucks leave, 90% of these gardens were still thriving years later. Because it isn't a gift, it's a technology of independence. For many households, this was the hard line between hunger and hope. To build your own, follow this protocol. First, clear a circle roughly 6 to 8 feet wide. Use what the land gives you: field stones, old bricks, or even bottles packed in clay. Build the wall waist high. In the dead center, install a cylindrical wire basket lined with twigs or dry grass. This is your core. From the edge of the circle, cut a narrow notch, the keyhole, allowing you to walk straight to the basket without ever stepping on and compacting the growing soil. Fill the remaining space with layers of organic matter sloping it slightly downward from the center to the edge. Every morning, you aren't just gardening, you are feeding the engine. Eggshells, peelings, and greywater go into the basket. The soil does the rest. In a world obsessed with complex, expensive solutions, the Keyhole Garden is a quiet rebellion. It proves that resilience doesn't come from a store. It comes from the wisdom of the circle and the simple daily act of turning waste into hope. Stop thinking of your garden as a hobby. For most of human history, it was an engine of survival. But today, we've turned it into a subscription model. We're bleeding time and money into plastic beds, synthetic fertilizers, and endless water bills. It's a fragile system. If the supply chain breaks or the rain stops, the garden dies. There is a better way. A design born in the high plateaus of Africa that doesn't just grow food, it preserves life. In the early 2000s, Lesotho was at a breaking point. Drought was the norm. Aid trucks were a temporary bandage. But then, something shifted. Using nothing but fieldstone scrap wire and ancestral wisdom, local farmers built over 20,000 keyhole gardens. Decades later, surveys found 90% of them are still producing. In a world where most projects fade when the aid stops, this design stayed. It became a fixture of the landscape, passed from neighbor to neighbor. Here's how the engine works. Imagine a circle of stone, waist-high, with a small notched path leading to the center. At the very heart sits a wire basket, the core. You don't water the soil, you water the core. When you pour water into that central basket, it filters through layers of kitchen scraps, ash, and cardboard. It dissolves nutrients as it moves, creating a concentration gradient. The moisture doesn't evaporate off the surface. It's pulled slowly outward by the dry soil like a sponge releasing water from the inside out. The science is undeniable. Soil scientists found that the compost core increases the soil's ability to hold water exponentially. Just a 5% boost in organic matter can quadruple moisture retention. In controlled tests, these gardens reduced irrigation needs by up to 66%. 1 bucket of water does the work of 3. To build your own survival engine, follow this protocol. First, clear a 6-foot circle. Raise a wall of stone brick or reclaimed wood to waist height. This protects the soil from wind and makes the garden accessible for everyone. Second, place a porous tube or wire basket in the exact center. This is your digestive system. Fill it with active compostable materials. Third layer, the bed. Start with heavy branches at the bottom for drainage, then soil, then rich organic matter. Slope the soil slightly away from the center core to assist the flow. Finally, feed the core daily with your kitchen waste and greywater. One farmer in Lesotho put it simply, "With this garden I feed my family from scraps. Even when the rains fail, the soil stays alive." This isn't just about saving money on your grocery bill. It's about resilience. It's about the independence that comes from knowing you can sustain yourself on what others throw away. Build the engine. Break the cycle. Because in the toughest months, this internal reservoir is the difference between hunger and hope. Most modern gardens are actually just expensive subscription models. You buy the plastic pots, you buy the synthetic fertilizers, and you pay for the water. The moment you stop paying, the system collapses. We've been conditioned to believe that growing food is a battle against nature that requires a credit card. But what if your garden was an engine that fueled itself? Enter the Keyhole Garden. This isn't just a bed of dirt, it's a living, breathing piece of ancestral technology designed to break that cycle of waste. At its heart lies a central wire basket, a core of constant renewal. When you drop your kitchen scraps and cardboard into the center, you aren't just composting. You are fueling a biological reactor. As that organic matter breaks down, it generates a gentle, consistent heat. This microbial respiration acts like a subterranean heater, keeping the soil frost-free long after the rest of the world has turned gray. In the 1990s, in the drought-stricken highlands of Lesotho, this wasn't a hobby. It was the difference between hunger and hope. Farmers there watched as their keyhole beds stayed productive in soil so dry it would normally turn to dust. The magic happens through bioturbation. Earthworms drawn by the scent of the core act as a tireless invisible workforce. They tunnel out from the center, acting as tiny plows that aerate the earth while leaving behind nutrient-rich castings. They create a slow-release fertilizer that spreads through the soil with every movement. This is the engine of survival. To build your own, follow the protocol. First, clear a 6-foot circle and raise a stone or brick perimeter to waist height. This saves your back and retains moisture. Second, place a cylindrical wire mesh basket exactly in the center. This is your fuel tank. Third, fill the bed in layers sloping them downward from the center basket to the outer edge. Use heavy branches at the bottom for drainage followed by dry leaves and finally high-quality soil. Lastly, cut a small keyhole path into the circle so you can reach the central basket without ever stepping on and compacting the growing soil. Every time you peel a carrot or empty a coffee filter, you aren't throwing away trash. You are feeding the engine. You are opting out of a fragile commercial system and stepping into a cycle of resilience. Because a garden shouldn't be a luxury that bleeds you of time and money. It should be the thing that sustains you when everything else fails. Build the engine. Feed the core, grow your own independence. Walk into any big box garden center this spring and you'll see it. The trap. Rows of plastic-wrapped soil, towers of chemical fertilizers, a wall of miracle kits designed to fail by next October. We've been sold a lie that to grow life you must first buy it. It's a subscription model for the dirt, a 4x8 box that swallows $100 before the first seed even touches the earth. The industry depends on your garden being hungry. If your soil thrived on its own, their revenue would vanish. They want it clean. They want it orderly. They want the messy, beautiful reality of decay hidden behind a tidy fence. But while we were busy buying bags of dirt, a small nation in southern Africa was perfecting an engine of survival. In the 1990s, Lesotho was a land of extremes. Thin soil, scorching droughts, a hunger that wouldn't wait for a sale at the hardware store. They couldn't afford a subscription. They needed a solution that breathed. They built the Keyhole Garden. It isn't just a bed, it's a living organism. Picture a circle of stones waist-high with a small notched walkway, the keyhole leading to the center. At that center sits a wire basket, a hollow spine filled with kitchen scraps, greywater, and organic waste. As the scraps rot, they don't just sit there, they bleed. Nutrients seep outward from the core fueled by gravity and moisture feeding the roots directly. It is a self-watering, self-fertilizing machine built from what the modern world calls trash. To build your own engine, follow the protocol. First, the foundation. Clear a 6-foot circle. In the center, anchor a cylinder of chicken wire. This is the digestive tract of your garden. Second, the wall. Stack stones, bricks, or timber at least 3 feet high. This protects the soil from the baking sun and saves your back from the strain. Third, the layers. Fill the base with large rocks for drainage. Layer cardboard dry leaves and manure on top. Slant the soil downward from the center basket to the outer edge to guide the moisture. Finally, the fuel. Every day, toss your vegetable peels and coffee grounds into the center basket. Pour your wash water over them. The result? A garden that ignores the supply chain. While the neighbor's clean garden slumps and starves, yours is digesting. It's vibrant. It's resilient. It is the difference between a hobby and hope. We don't need more bags of soil. We need to remember how to build systems that feed themselves. Break the subscription. Build the engine. Look at your garden. Is it a source of life or just another monthly bill? Most modern gardens are operating on a subscription model. You buy the seeds. You buy the fertilizer. You buy the soil amendments. You are bleeding time and money into a system designed to fail the moment you stop paying. But there is a way to break the cycle, a way to turn a patch of dirt into an engine of survival. In the highlands of Lesotho, Africa, survival isn't a hobby. It's a daily negotiation with a harsh, unforgiving landscape. When the soil is depleted and the rain stops falling, you don't go to the hardware store. You look to ancestral wisdom. You build a keyhole garden. This isn't just a raised bed. It's a living, breathing, digestive system. It's the difference between hunger and hope. And it starts with a simple change in mindset: stop fighting nature and start feeding the machine beneath the surface. Here is the protocol for building your own engine. First, the core. You'll need a roll of wire mesh. Chicken wire is perfect. Shape it into a cylinder about 12 inches across and 3 feet tall. This isn't about precision, it's about function. This cage is the heart of the garden. Find the center of your bed and dig a hole 1 foot deep. Line the bottom with sticks, twigs, and broken branches. This layer is your drainage system. It ensures water flows through the compost rather than pooling and rotting the roots. Set your wire tube upright on those sticks. The top should stand a few inches above the soil line. This is your intake manifold. Now fill the core: banana peels, coffee grounds, eggshells, torn cardboard. This is your fuel. Avoid meat or dairy. We want life, not pests. Top each layer with dry leaves or shredded paper. This balance of wet and dry keeps the engine running clean without the slime. Local earthworms will find their way in, or you can invite them yourself. Backfill the soil around the outside, anchoring the tube. Then plant your vegetables in concentric rings working from the edge toward the center. Every time you pour water or kitchen scraps into that central core, nutrients seep outward. You aren't just watering plants. You are feeding a subterranean ecosystem that in turn feeds you. You've just built something that doesn't rely on a supply chain. It doesn't care about inflation. It's a self-sustaining fortress of nutrition. Build the engine. Break the subscription. Reclaim your independence. Every spring, we're sold the same lie. We're told that to grow life, we must first buy it. We buy the soil. We buy the fertilizer. We buy into a subscription model of gardening that bleeds time and money. But what if your garden wasn't a static box? What if it was a living machine? In the 1990s, in the drought-stricken kingdom of Lesotho, this wasn't a hobby. It was a war against hunger. Out of that crisis came the Keyhole Garden, an engine of survival built from circles of stone and ancestral wisdom. It is designed to do one thing: feed itself so it can feed you. At its heart sits a wire basket core. This is the stomach of the system. For less than $5 and an hour of work, you can stop being a consumer and start being a producer. You aren't just planting seeds, you're building a self-sustaining loop. Here is the protocol for the engine. Every morning, your kitchen waste becomes fuel. Carrot tops, coffee grounds, and crushed eggshells go straight into the center basket. Follow it with a handful of shredded paper or dry leaves to keep the compost sweet and balanced. The core digests these scraps, weeping nutrients directly into the roots surrounding it. No measuring, no chemical runoff, no fuss. But a machine only works if you respect its limits. Keep out the rot. No meat, no dairy, and no cooked oils. These attract trouble and pests. If in doubt, leave it out. Cover the core with a simple lid to keep the heat in and the neighbors happy. Over the months, you will notice the slump. The soil will settle as the core breathes and digests. This isn't a failure, it's the pulse of the garden. A fresh layer of topsoil once a season is all it takes to reset the clock. We live in an era of rising costs and fragile systems. While millions pour money into synthetic bags of chemicals, a simple wire tube and a season's worth of scraps can generate more fertility than any store-bought solution. It's time to break the cycle of waste. Nature has been working for free for 4 billion years. Maybe it's time we finally let it. Build the core, close the loop. Tell me in the comments, are you ready to stop buying your garden and start growing one?